Welcome back to Tongue of the Serpent. All season long, New Orleans has been showing us its thresholds, haunted objects, hungry roads, false miracles, old bargains, and the quiet truth that nothing buried in this city stays buried forever. But every season, if it means anything, eventually arrives at the wound beneath the wound. The first choice, the first fear, the first wrong turn that taught every other sorrow where to grow. Tonight, Evelyn steps into one of the city's hidden confessional spaces and tells the truth she has carried longer than most civilizations. It's not a small truth. It's not even a useful one. It's the kind that changes the room merely by being spoken aloud. And in New Orleans, names spoken with real weight do not vanish. They travel downward. They wake things. This is the first sin. The city's confessional booths. New Orleans survives by leaking. Music leaks out of doorways and car windows and the mouths of men who swear they can't sing. Heat leaks through brick and bone until everything feels gently steamed. History leaks in the way old perfume leaks from velvet. You can pretend it's gone, but it will haunt you anyway. And regret, of course, leaks constantly, pooling in gutters, rising in the river fog, clinging to people like humidity. This city doesn't erase sins. It composts them. It presses them into the roots of live oaks and grows beauty out of rot, which is both a miracle and a warning, depending on your mood. People come here because they think they want transformation. Most of them simply want permission. There were places in New Orleans that function as pressure valves, little doors that appeared when the city has too much unspoken grief behind its ribs. Most were metaphorical, not literal. Sometimes it would be an alley that wasn't there yesterday. Other times, a staircase would insist it leads somewhere new. Most often, it was a shop you noticed only after you've already stepped inside. Some cities had therapists. New Orleans had architecture. Once in a while, a place appeared. There was not a business so much as a transaction. You don't go there to shop. You went there to leave something behind. The Last Midnight Café was one of those places. It appeared only when the quarter was heavy with secrets and the night was holding its breath. When the city needed somewhere for confessions to sit down before they drowned everyone. No one saw it arrive. People only remembered it when they were inside. Afterward, they became uncertain as why their chest felt lighter, or why the darkness behind their eyes felt, if not kinder, then a lot less crowded with unhappy memories and trauma. The city appears in an alley that wasn't there. It was a night like any other in the quarter, sultry, loud at the edges, soaked with jazz and sweat, and the sweet rot of spilled daiquiris drying on stone. Bourbon Street laughed in neon, just as the French Quarter murmured in gaslight. The air became the hot breath on the back of your neck, humid enough to feel like it had hands. Between a boarded-up shop with a faded painted sign and a rusting iron gate that led nowhere anyone admitted to, there was an alley, and then there wasn't. 1 minute, the narrow stretch of cobblestone was empty, only shadow and the faint smell of piss and jasmine. The next minute, it wasn't empty anymore. A sagging awning of faded velvet hung above a doorway that had not existed. A single gaslight flickered beside it, vintage, aged, a flame casting shadows like skeletal hands clawing at the stones. Above the door, in chipped and peeling gold letters, a name declared itself with quiet authority: the Last Midnight Café. No one pointed at it. No one behaved as though there was anything there worth noticing. People simply glanced down the alley as they passed and felt the small, irresistible tug of curiosity and ache. The kind of ache that has been sitting quietly in the back of the body for years, waiting for someone to offer it a chair. Inside, the space was impossibly small. Just a handful of rickety tables and a counter scarred by coffee rings, older than memory. The walls were the color of twilight, somewhere between blue and black, that bruised in-between hue the sky wears just before it decides whether to storm. Yellowed photographs were placed everywhere, haphazardly but intentionally, as if the wall itself had begun collecting faces. Men and women and children stared out with expressions that suggested they were trying to remember themselves. Some smiles looked rehearsed, and some eyes looked like they had been taken by surprise. A teeny radio played old blues from somewhere behind the counter, the music thin and patient as a needle tracing a groove it had traced 1,000 times. Behind the counter stood the proprietor. She was an old woman, hunched and brittle, hair thin and wild, the color of ashes after a fire. Her eyes were unnervingly bright, quicksilver catching light. Her hands moved slowly, but with purpose, as she polished chipped ceramic mugs. The motion ritual, deliberate, like prayer without the performance. It felt less like a place people inhabited than a mechanism performing its task. The price of coffee. The patrons came in the way moths come to light, attracted, seduced, irresistibly drawn, because something in them leaned toward it. A man in a wrinkled shirt stumbled in first, eyes bloodshot, mouth tight. He smelled of cheap whiskey and the particular panic of someone who hasn't slept in days. He sat at the nearest table as though gravity had suddenly become personal. "I only meant to scare him," he whispered before anyone had asked. "Just to shut him up, just to make him stop." His hands trembled as if still holding the moment. The old woman poured him a cup of black coffee from an ancient percolator that hissed like an annoyed snake. She slid the cup across the counter without spilling a drop. You did not want payment in the form of cash or credit. Instead, she looked into his eyes with those bright, brittle irises and asked, very simply, "Got a secret?" The man swallowed hard and gave it to her, the confession cracking out of him like a tooth. Later, a woman arrived with lipstick smudged and mascara half ruined, as if she'd been crying in the kind of bathroom that didn't have paper towels. She sat with her hands folded tightly. "I left her," she said softly. "I told myself it was temporary, but then I built a whole life on the lie." The old woman nodded, poured, always asking for the same price. A tourist wandered in last, carrying a phone and a nervous laugh, the type who come to New Orleans hoping to be haunted in a charming way, and discovered that the city did not offer charm as a guarantee. "I came for ghosts," the tourist said, "but I think I brought my own." The coffee was always the same, dark and bitter, with something that tasted like sorrow and warmth stirred in together. And the cafe listened the way a bank accepts deposits. Secrets have weight, and speaking them transfers ownership. Every time a confession was whispered in the cafe's twilight air, the photographs on the walls seemed to lean in, as if the building itself was cataloging human truth for later use. The cafe recognizes her. Past midnight, the quarter grows quiet in small pockets, although Bourbon Street never truly shuts its mouth. Still, there are moments when even New Orleans pauses, when the music thins and the humidity settles like a hand on the back of the neck. The city takes a breath and holds it, listening to its own blood. That was when Evelyn entered. Others drifted in, eyes wide with confusion, but Evelyn entered with intent, the way a shadow chooses where to fall. Her honey blonde hair was pinned up neatly, regal without trying. Velvet clung to her as though the fabric had known her longer than cloth should. Her face carried the calm of someone who had outlived entire empires and learned that panic was rarely productive. She sat at the counter and rested her hands on the scarred wood, fingertips tracing invisible lines as if reading old roads in the grain. The radio's blues slid into a softer verse. The cafe seemed to lean slightly inward, more attentive than usual. The old woman did not ask for payment this time. She simply poured. The black coffee steamed in delicate swirls as she set the cup down in front of Evelyn, as though the transaction had already been approved in some ledger neither of them needed to see. Evelyn's pale eyes drifted to the photographs on the walls, their faces pinned like moths, staring out as if trying to remember their own names. She recognized the expression, the half-ache of a life reduced to one frozen moment. She took a deep breath, then spoke softly as if making a decision for herself more than anyone else. "I have a secret." It seemed less a payment than an acknowledgement. Evelyn closed her eyes. For a moment, the cafe seemed to remember a much older world. The minutes lost their clean edges, lingering instead, collecting in the hush between breaths, slow and dark and strange enough to taste. She began again carefully, without doctrine or scripture. "Once," she said, "there was a garden." The words landed like a memory, waking up. She breathed into a life, a place where the world was new enough to still feel tender, where the air carried the clean sweetness of beginnings. Dawn didn't taste of regrets, and rivers sounded like laughter because no one had taught them sorrow. Evelyn's voice softened, almost reverent. In that place, she continued, I thought I understood love. She paused as if weighing whether to continue. Then she spoke the truth clearly, without poetry to soften it. My name was Eve. That was a weight she'd tried to drop long ago, buried deep in the primordial soil, a name spoken like unlocking a door she had sealed long ago with both hands. The cafe hushed. Even the radio's blues turned thinner, as though listening required silence. Eve's hands rested on the counter, fingers curled lightly, nails catching the gaslight. He loved the idea of me, she said. Her voice held no bitterness, only the quiet precision of someone stating an old fact. He loved my obedience. He loved the way my body moved through the world as if it belonged to him. He loved the feeling of being first in my world. Her face remained painfully blank, and I wanted safety. She let out a small, almost humorless laugh. I wanted to be chosen. I wanted to believe that if I did everything correctly, if I bent myself into the shape he preferred, then one day it would become tenderness, care, that someday he would see me as I was and love me for that alone. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to a distant sound that wasn't in the room. I mistook containment for comfort, she said. I mistook a cage for a home. The old woman behind the counter continued listening, without surprise or judgment. Her quick silver eyes remained fixed and patient. Eve's lips parted, and then Lilith came. The name moved through the cafe like recognition, finally given a voice. Lilith arrived in Eve's memory, the way certain truths arrive, quietly and then all at once. She came before me, Eve said, and her voice thinned around the words. She didn't offer me lies or empty promises. She didn't promise me a throne. Eve's fingers tightened briefly against the wood. She offered me truth. She spoke to me like I was real, Eve whispered. In her eyes, I wasn't just an extension of someone else's need. I was more than some beautiful object that could be named and owned. Eve's breath trembled slightly. She offered equality, she said, and freedom, and the terrifying possibility of being fully seen. She laughed once softly, not from humor, but from the old ache of remembering. And I was afraid. She let the confession hang. The first sin wasn't fruit, she continued harshly. The first sin was choosing safety over love. The words tasted bitter, even before the coffee touched her tongue. Eve's eyes remained closed. I chose the familiar cage, she said, over the wild, truthful door. He was the choice that seemed safe, she continued. The one that promised protection. He promised that if I stayed small enough, still enough, good enough, that I could belong. Eve's voice sharpened slightly. But safety never became love. She opened her eyes briefly, gaze distant, then closed them again, as if the memory were too bright. Betrayal arrived anyway, she said softly. He never became kinder or braver, at least not for me. Her eyes hardened with memory. He only became more certain he had the right to define me and to speak for me. He believed he could turn my fear into proof that I needed him. And when the garden ended, Eve whispered, time began. The world turned harsher. The edges became sharper, more apparent. Death became a certainty instead of a rumor, and regret moved into Eve's chest like a second heartbeat. She thought she could outrun it, but centuries passed. She wore 1,000 faces. She was a goddess, a queen, a widow, and a wanderer. She was the woman in velvet, walking through cities at their dawn and again at their death. Regret came with her like a shadow that never quite detached, because Lilith had been the one who loved her truly, and Eve abandoned her. The coffee steamed in front of her. Eve lifted it at last and drank. It was bitter as confession and dark as a wound that had learned not to close. Eve set the cup down carefully. When she opened her eyes, she looked weary, ancient, drained. She looked until the old woman's bright and human gaze and said, quietly, devastatingly, I can't rest. Not yet. She smiled without hope. Maybe not ever. Names traveled downward. The old woman's hands stopped polishing the mug. For the first time since Evelyn entered, she seemed fully present, as if the name had pulled her attention into sharper focus. Nothing truly rests, child, she said. Her voice was thin but steady, like paper that has survived too many years without tearing. Not in this world. Eve's fingers remained on the counter, but she felt something under them now, a listening that reminded her that some places do listen, and some do see. The old woman's quicksilver eyes flicked toward the walls where photographs stared outward. Secrets don't disappear, she continued. They move. Her gaze returned to Eve. And names, she said softly, move faster. Eve looked at the photographs again. For a moment, she could have sworn one of them shifted just slightly, as if filing her confession into an archive no human would ever be allowed to browse. The old woman leaned forward a fraction. Names spoken with true weight become hooks in the world, she said, and hooks catch on things you didn't mean to touch. Beneath the floorboards, something deep and slow seemed to stir, a second heartbeat under the French Quarter. The old woman's voice dropped, blunt and gentle at once. Some things hear names like bells. Eve inhaled and stood. The woman, the cafe, did not try to stop her. They never stopped anyone who had paid. She left the cup where it was, still steaming faintly, as if confession continued rising from it even after she walked away. Lucian learns the truth. The crew of the Morning Star was closed. This meant, in practice, that the sign on the window said closed, and Lucian had locked the front door. It did not mean the world stayed out. The shop glowed with candlelight and the soft amber of a single lamp, the kind that made old paper look kinder than it was. Shelves rose like quiet witnesses. Objects sat on them with the patient stillness of things that had survived several owners and learned not to trust enthusiasm. Lucian Devereaux stood behind the counter with an antique key in his hand, brass, worn smooth at the bow, its teeth cut in a pattern that suggested the lock it belonged to had never been entirely reasonable. He polished it slowly, as if shine could be substituted for certainty. The bell above the door chose not to ring. Instead, the door simply opened. Evelyn stepped inside, carrying the scent of coffee and dust, as if the night had clung to her on purpose. Her velvet seemed darker here, drinking the lamplight instead of reflecting it. She looked composed, but there was something newly raw beneath the composure, like a scar that had been touched too hard. Lucian's eyes lifted. "You're late," he said. Evelyn's lips curved faintly. "You ever wonder why I'm still here?" she asked, voice light enough to pass for teasing if you didn't listen closely. Lucian's brow rose. "I assumed it was just to annoy me." Evelyn gave a soft laugh, brittle at the edges. "I told a secret tonight," she said. Lucian's polishing cloth paused, humor falling away. His expression tightened in the smallest way, because Lucian understood secrets the way bankers understood collateral. "And?" he said. Evelyn met his gaze. "My name was Eve." Lucian went still. Never once, in all the long decades he'd known her, had Lucian asked her what she was. He took it calmly, like a man realizing a rumor has bones. The knowledge seemed to settle behind his eyes, rearranging old conversations as it went. For a moment, the shop felt quieter, as if the objects on the shelves were listening too. Evelyn's voice softened. "And I loved Lilith first," she said. "Or rather, Lilith was the snake in the garden, and I chose wrong." Lucian's jaw tightened, but he didn't pry for theology. He asked the only question that mattered. "What did it stir?" Evelyn exhaled slowly. Something like tiredness moved through her eyes. Her gaze locked with his. "Something underneath the city heard me." Lucian's fingers tightened around the key, and somewhere beyond the shop walls, New Orleans shifted, subtle as a flinch. The hollow beneath New Orleans stirs. New Orleans has layers. Everyone knows the obvious ones. New streets built over old streets. Buildings built over old cemeteries. Districts constructed over drained waterways. Century building on top of century. Swampland that never consented to becoming a city. There are ghosts beneath ghosts here, stories beneath stories, but beneath it all is a liminal space. It sits beneath everything, older than maps, older than saints, older than the mythology tourists buy on t-shirts. It is not a place you can walk to. It is a pressure, a presence, a slow, patient weight that has been sleeping long enough to be mistaken for the city's foundation. It is not dead. It is dormant. It remembers Eve because Eve's regret is old enough to have roots, old enough to sink down through stone and mud and settle into the bones of a city built on survival and sin. When Evelyn spoke her true name, the Hollow listened. The gas lamps outside gave a small, unnecessary shiver, their flames bending as though to hear better. Somewhere, the river made a low sound in its throat, vast and displeased, like an ancient listener forced to overhear a name it had hoped not to encounter again. Across the French Quarter, the air altered by the smallest possible degree, which was nevertheless enough to make people pause with drinks halfway to their mouths or glance up from conversations they had not been enjoying very much anyway. For a moment, the city felt like a living thing interrupted in the act of pretending not to listen. And beneath it all, something immense shifted in its sleep, twitching, listening, no longer resting with its full attention elsewhere. It wasn't awake, not yet, but it was aware. Storm break and temporary quiet. A storm gathered at the edges of the horizon, the way storms do in Louisiana, uninvited, inevitable, full of heat and bad intentions. By the time the clock struck an hour no one bothered naming, thunder had begun arguing with the rooftops. The first drops fell thick and warm, splattering the sidewalks as if the city had finally decided to confess. Rain washed the streets clean with theatrical enthusiasm, flooding gutters with beads and cigarette butts and the small, glittering evidence of human choices. Evelyn and Lucien moved through the French Quarter together, walking with purpose, because panic was a kind of prayer, and neither of them wished to feed anything listening below. They stopped at a threshold most people never noticed, a bricked-up stairwell beneath a closed restaurant, the old iron grate half hidden by vines. The air that seeped through the cracks was colder than the night deserved, smelling faintly of wet stone and something older. Lucien took the brass key from his pocket. He held it against the brick as though the wall might recognize it. For a moment, the metal warmed. Evelyn watched, hands clasped at her waist. She did not speak her name again, avoiding anything that could ring like a bell through sleeping depths. Lucien withdrew the key. "The rule," he said quietly, "is simple." Evelyn nodded, eyes dark. "Do not name it again," she whispered, "unless you mean to wake it fully." The storm continued. The city breathed. For now, the hollow beneath New Orleans settled back into uneasy sleep. The cafe reappears for someone else. dawn arrived, and the rain slowed. The French quarter exhaled, as if relieved to remember it was allowed to be ordinary again. Somewhere in another alley that had been empty a moment before, velvet awning and a single gas light appeared. The Last Midnight Café breathed into existence like a secret deciding it needed a room. Inside, the old woman pinned a new photograph to the wall. It was not a clear portrait. It was the suggestion of a blonde silhouette at the counter, like memory refusing to be captured cleanly. You've been listening to Tongue of the Serpent. That was the first sin, a story about regret old enough to become geography. Love refused in the name of safety, and the terrible cost of choosing the familiar cage over the truthful door. In New Orleans, confession is never only personal. The city keeps what it hears. It roots itself beneath the streets, beneath the thresholds, beneath the lives built on top of older grief. And now the season closes where all real trouble begins. The monster is not fully risen, but we know the name that wakes it. Thank you for walking through the dark with us this season. Until next time, keep your lanterns low, your heart honest, and remember, some sins are not acts. They are choices, and choices echo longer than anyone wants to believe.